The long-awaited Final Fantasy VII Remake is finally here, and while a lot has changed since 1997, you can feel a love and respect for the original PS1 classic pouring out of this new release. The sheer amount of work that went into every little detail of the world and characters is staggering and shows how much the developers cared about the world of the original game as they brought it into the 21st century. The same holds true for the music, too. Nobuo Uematsu's legendary score is rearranged with live instruments and a completely new, modern approach to the game's sound design. One thing that I really like about the remake is that, while its reverence for the original game is obvious, it's not afraid to sacrifice elements of the original game for a more modern approach. With the soundtrack too, while Uematsu's melodies are kept in pristine condition, the composers weren't afraid to make big changes to the arrangement of each track to bring out different qualities of the original compositions. This has resulted in a little bit of controversy, unsurprisingly, with the Mako Reactor theme specifically garnering criticism for sounding too orchestral in comparison to the original music's synth-driven, futuristic sound. As someone who has never played the original Final Fantasy VII, I thought my unbiased and nostalgia-free ears would be in a perfect position to judge whether the remade Mako Reactor theme truly holds up to the original Uematsu classic. First, let's look at the original theme. We start off with a solemn rhythmic statement on a low C made by timpani and low piano with various mechanical sighs and whirring helping to set the tone for sneaking around an industrial facility. As the creepy melody comes in with a biting synth, the timpani switches to a quarter note pulse with the low piano bass line maintaining its initial rhythmic motif. Using a low bass pedal on the root note for a whole section like this sounds super ominous, especially in conjunction with the melody, which switches between evoking a natural C minor sound via the flat 6th and flat 7th and outlining a B flat minor triad over the C bass pedal for some somber dissonance. We have here a very dark sound. The rhythm, tempo, and bass pedal all suggest a funeral march kind of vibe to me, with the jagged synth melody suggesting a more futuristic sound. Combined, you could say that these elements evoke the sound of a dystopian future, which couldn't be more perfect considering the setting. Moving along, we see an interesting combination of more typical orchestral instruments and synth sounds. Pulsing string chords alternate between C minor and B flat minor triads over the same bass pedal figure as before we modulate suddenly to the key of G minor, where we're joined by a metallic chime synth melody and offbeat synth stabs outlining the G minor harmony. After this, we again modulate suddenly, this time to the key of B flat minor, where the same arrangement plays out until we repeat back to the C minor melody at the top of the form. Everything about this piece is cold, dark, industrial, and ominous. The remake's version of the Mako Reactor theme sounds to me to be even darker and more ominous, although it does somewhat lose the dystopian industrial tinge. The tempo is slower, and while that iconic rhythmic motif is still played by the timpani in the tune's intro, once the melody comes in, that's replaced with a simplified half-note based rhythm. The slower tempo and the loss of the driving quarter-note timpani part mean that this arrangement feels a lot more subdued than the original, but to be honest, I think this adds to the sense of foreboding. The synth that brought in that first jagged melody is replaced with low strings and octaves, which are just gorgeous. They bring this haunting and tragic quality that the original tune just didn't have. Just like the original, we have a 4-bar transition with the strings giving us a stabbing C minor to B flat minor over C progression while the timpani resumes the original rhythmic motif. When the shift to G minor hits though, the floor drops out from underneath us. No offbeat synth arpeggio, no driving timpani, just high string pads and a piano melody over a low bass drone. This drastic departure from the original arrangement has much less rhythmic drive, but it's for 2 good reasons. First, this gives the arrangement room to grow. As the section progresses towards the end, new elements are gradually added back in, such as staccato quarter note string chords, a French horn doubling the melody, choir, snare drum, and timpani that brings back the original rhythmic motif of the piece. The effect is a big, gradual crescendo that breaks right as we return to the top of the form. Second, the start of this G minor section is focused on creating a much creepier atmosphere than the original tune did, both with the sparse texture of this arrangement as well as a crucial new reharmonization. The original piece had this section entirely over a G minor chord as outlined by the offbeat synth part, with the strings playing alternating G minor and D minor triads over the G bass for a colorful minor 9 sound. The remake arrangement, first quietly in these high string pads but then more clearly as the lower strings join in, alters this section to give us a G minor to D flat augmented to C minor progression over our G bass pedal. This change feels much darker and more unsettling than the original, and combined with the sparser texture, it takes the piece in a creepy direction that's brand new to this arrangement. As we move into the following B-flat minor section, the original PS1 harmonization of B-flat minor to A-flat over B-flat chords comes back, sounding almost heroic in comparison to the previous section. This tonal shift, joined by added horns, timpani, and snare drum, makes the gradual crescendo of the piece even more dramatic. While it doesn't have the same rhythmic drive or futuristic synth sound of the original, I love the new, haunting tone that the orchestration and new harmonic choices add, and I respect the composer's willingness to take this piece in a different direction from the original game. The balance between respecting the source material and modernizing the experience is showcased perfectly with the remake's use of dynamic music. The game uses multiple arrangements of most of Uematsu's original tracks, designed to fade from one to the other to better fit what's happening on screen at any given moment. In the Mako Reactor level, the arrangement we already dissected fades into a hard-hitting battle version of the same theme whenever you encounter enemies, as well as a foreboding pre-battle track as you approach the Sweeper mini-boss. After making your way through the laser gauntlet, the regular Mako Reactor theme fades out to just the bass pedal, then the bass pedal shifts from whatever note it was on to a G, and the pre-Sweeper fight music starts from the top. Our memorable timpani rhythmic motif is pounded out on a G above a string bass pedal and quick, simmering industrial-sounding percussion. The B-section melody of the Reactor theme comes in with harmonized horns, altered slightly from its original form to add the leading tone F-sharp resolving up to the tonic G for a more sinister effect. It's simple, but it's a great transition to the battle arrangement of the Mako theme. G is the dominant in the key of C minor, which is the key that the Mako Reactor theme is in, so shifting to G for this transition makes it feel like an arrival when the robot notices you and the C minor battle theme abruptly comes in. For most battle sequences in the level, the music would fade from wherever it was in the one arrangement to the same point in the tune's form in the other arrangement. This transition, which only comes in before this mini boss fight, makes sure that as the battle starts, it's accompanied with this bombastic intro, a syncopated reinterpretation of the timpani rhythm in the original intro, the new offbeats and faster tempo adding a new intensity while still being recognizably based on the original rhythmic motif. To get the kind of upbeat drive that a battle theme requires, this arrangement doubles the tempo of the original Mako Reactor theme exactly and stretches out the form to have 2 bars of music for every 1 bar of the original. The rhythm of the melody stays consistent between the 2 versions though, which means that we get this very cool effect where the stretched out longer rhythms of the melody are contrasted by extremely busy rhythmic energy in the newly added drum part and syncopated string accents. This arrangement is focused on sounding like a Final Fantasy battle theme, which means we need to lose the creepy atmosphere. That's why we ditch the ominous bass pedal and replace the B-flat minor chord with its relative major D-flat chord. This slightly stretched out C minor to D-flat progression is still very similar in color to the C minor to B-flat minor progression of the original, but it also sounds less sinister and more just badass, perfect for a battle theme. The same dynamic shift from the regular Mako theme is kept, with the G minor section dropping off in intensity considerably. We again get the new juicy G minor D-flat augmented C minor harmony over a G bass pedal, now interspersed with some cool scalar string runs. This crescendos throughout the following B-flat minor section as added brass shots and a harmonized horn counterline bring us to a climax. This tune works so well as a battle theme that it's easy to forget that it wasn't originally composed that way. I think it's safe to say that the new soundtrack does a wonderful job of adapting the spirit of the original music to a modern aesthetic, managing to retain the core identity of the original tunes without being too afraid to change things to fit the new direction of the game. I do kind of get where the complaints against these rearrangements are coming from though. Playing through the remake with the voice acting and the sound effects and the explosions or bullets or whatever, the music is emphasized much less than in the PlayStation 1 original. This is kind of the downside to taking a more modern approach to the sound design in general, but listening to each track back to back outside of the context of the game, I think the new orchestration brings an added depth to the music, and with the dynamic elements of the music we get something that the original 1997 soundtrack couldn't have dreamed of doing. I will say that the level of vibiness that Uematsu produced with the PS1 sound hardware is astonishing, and the remake soundtrack obviously couldn't achieve what it has achieved without the groundwork laid by Uematsu in the first place. But I gotta say, I really dig what the remake's done with the music, and I'm already looking forward to future installments of this game. Big thanks to patron Mark Starvagi for the request. If you'd like to join Mark in supporting this channel, feel free to check out my Patreon page here. You can also follow me on Twitter at 8BitMusicTheory for the social media equivalent of a barren wasteland. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.